This conference will now be recorded.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So on the agenda today, first is a discussion with Carlin Jensen. She's in the back. You're welcome to come up front here, Carlin. We have a seat for you. It's from the Adirondack Sports Council, and she is sort of the helping direct the 100K and 50K Wilmington mountain bike race, which is on the schedule for. Have a seat. You want?
Oh, I can stand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. She's here for to talk about this year's events, and also I think it would be good for the public in the town to have a discussion about where the event may be going in the future, in a way, because it's so far Wilmington has sort of been helping very much to keep the event going, but other towns also have made contributions. Jay and things like that, and Lewis, and they like the event, but we're trying to. So this year's event will follow pretty much similar lines that last year's event went, but it may be good to start a discussion with, the future of this bike race. Should it be in July at the same time as the uphill foot race and the bike race, or there are other alternatives? So, Carlin, for this year's bike race, you've got some ideas about. What just to tell us what you think.
Yeah. So anyway, welcome. Thank you for having me here, and I want to introduce myself. My name is Carlin Jessen. Now that's my married name, but I'm a Devlin, and some of you might remember Mike and Lori Devlin who had the KOA for years, and Mike's my cousin. So I have long and deep roots in the community here, in Lake Placid and Jay. All my grandfather's relatives were from Jay, so I've been around for a while. I have not been around the Adirondack Sports Council for too long. I came on board with them right before the World University Games, and then sort of lingered with a few events after that. So I don't have the same history and background with this mountain bike race that many of you probably have. What I do know is that 3 years ago, the Leadville qualifier aspect of the Wilmington Whiteface race went away, and that was for a couple of reasons. One reason, our understanding, is that Leadville itself decided to pull all the qualifiers from the East Coast. It could have been for a number of reasons, but we fell into a group of races losing that qualifying with some of the other East Coast races. So we have been told that could come back at some point if we applied for it. However, what happened at that point was that the race was going to disappear, and there were a lot of people who said, let's see if we can keep it here. And so they came to the Adirondack Sports Council, who had the personnel and the infrastructure to manage the race. And we have sort of adopted it going forward. But so 2 years ago, it was over. 3 years ago, it was still at Whiteface Mountain. And then 2 years ago, it was here at the park across the street. And then it automatically got rescheduled for the park across the street again. But I looked around and realized that it's sort of lost the community hug that it used to have. And I recognize that this is a community's race. It's the name Wilmington is on the race. And we need to figure out how to make it fit back into the community as a package that the community really likes. So, mountain bike racing and gravel racing, 40 million people in the United States engage in that every year. So 10% of the population across the country participate in mountain biking. Mountain biking as a sport isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's growing here in the Adirondacks, and it accounts for a lot of the visitors and a lot of the local recreation as well. So our race in particular, this year it's scheduled for June 8th. It has always been scheduled for that sort of first weekend of June. Last year was June 2nd, I believe it fell. And we have visitors from last year in particular. We had 350 riders. We had riders from over 19 different states and provinces. The third highest ridership was from Ontario, so we don't know what's going to happen with our Canadian friends this year. Of course, Quebec had a lot of representation too. But New York State is the largest number of riders that come in, and not all just local riders, but a good number of them. But we have people from eastern or western part of the state, as well as way down towards the city. We also get a lot from our neighboring states. So it's an event that's really well liked around the region. In terms of economic impact, we surveyed riders after the event last year, and of the riders who returned the survey, they spent $60,000 over 4 days in this region. So, these are people that are coming in with pretty high-end bikes and pretty high-end attitudes, and they're leaving a lot of money in the community. So, we know that here in Wilmington, all of the lodging, accommodations, retail, and restaurants are where most of the people are leaving their money on a weekend like that. And it accounts for like 93% of the economic impact in the area. And we also surveyed those riders and learned that the majority of them did stay in Wilmington. So I think anytime there was vacancy, they were here. And then the second most popular community was Jay, and then Lake Placid and Saranac Lake. So these riders are not coming here to spend their money in Lake Placid. They're coming to be here, and they're camping in the campgrounds, and they're staying in the cozy motels and hotels that are right around the corner from the start of the race. So I think the riders love it. I hope that we can get the community to wrap their arms back around this race. It is your race. And I think one thing that I would like to see is a little bit more activity for the junior riders. I want more kids to be involved, right? I saw you shake your head. I want more activity on that. What the Hardy kids built up back, the pump track and the skills area, and I want to focus more of a spotlight on some of those, the rising riders, the preteens and the teens. In fact, one of the overall winners last year was a 14-year-old who registered as an 18-year-old because we don't allow riders that young. But when he came across the finish line way ahead of everyone else, we're like, wait, just a minute, that kid is really young. So I think there's a lot of potential to develop the young riders in our community and give them an opportunity to participate at some level. So I'm looking forward to that. And this year, we know there's a lot of impact on the roadways that day. In fact, it's not an ideal situation for the riders. And so we'd like to look at moving the race so that the start is off the road, so we're not impacting traffic flow. So the start and finish are both off the road somewhere up here in this area, maybe utilizing the softball field up here and the youth center and the skills track and the playground a little bit more, and moving out of that park down there. We did make our way around the neighborhood last year with door hangers. I don't know if some of you live on the main drags, just to let everyone know that we're coming through, and we will do that again this year too. But I guess what I'm asking is just for number one, to think about the value of the race in your community and what this community wants to do with the race ultimately. I mean, the Adirondack Sports Council has no skin in the game, no investment in it if the community doesn't want it. We're just here to sort of serve as a catalyst for sport tourism and supporting the infrastructure. But we're certainly not here to deliver a product that isn't well received or that people don't want. So we need to think about that over the next year and how we want the event to look, and how we can better align with maybe some of the beta events and other events going on in the region. The other thing is I'm here to just get your blessing on June 8th. We already have over 170 riders registered, and also thirdly, to talk about moving it up into this area and out of that park down below, possibly using that park for parking and overflow and bathrooms and so forth, but having most of the activity on this side of here. Anything else? I guess questions?
So first, if there's among the board members about like this year's, the details for this year, if you have any questions, if you want to talk about that first, and then we could probably open up in a future discussion. So go ahead.
Thanks for coming. You said you don't have any skin in the game, but you guys What's your profit margin on the race?
0. We're lucky if the race pays for itself.
How is that?
Possible.
Yeah,
It's a struggle.
but like if you had 350 people at $123, which is your 50K entry fee, I mean, that's $43,000. You don't make any money on that?
By
That's
the time,
the minimum, like
the-
that's your minimum entry fee.
yeah, the expenses to put on an event like that, for everything from insurance to permits to food for the riders to staff to put it on. We did pay the town, even the town garage guys who helped us last year, the guys who put the signs out, the Go team that manages the course. I think the bill for the timing company was over $9,000. I mean, there's a huge expense for putting on a race like this. And that's why, I think there was a day in our past where people were making millions of dollars on races. We're not Ironman. A small race this size is lucky if it breaks even.
What's your sponsorship?
We don't have
Roots?
big sponsorships.
They
We're
don't-
not getting any money from Roost for this race. We do get some money from Roost when we put on the Adirondack Marathon. Really like $5,000. It's pretty small. So this, every rider gets a T-shirt, they get a medal, they get food. There are a lot of overhead costs to a race like this.
Just because you, on your Facebook post from last year, you had Roost and High Peak Cyclery and Lake Placid Public Brewery and
So the Lake Placid Pub and Brewery gives a beer away to every rider, and then they set up the beer tent. Roost supports with some graphic design work and a few other in-kind services. What were the other ones?
High Peaks.
Oh, High Peaks comes and sets up and does free bike mechanic work. It's mostly in kind.
Okay, not financial.
No.
What is the Adirondack Sports Council? It's a fairly new organization, right?
That's a great question. So the Adirondack Sports Council as a registered entity has been around for like 37 years, but it was mothballed. It may have been something that cropped up around the time as the Lake Placid Sports Council after the Olympics. And it was revitalized when we bid on the Children's Games and then the FISU, the World University Games. So there has to be a nonprofit third-party organizing committee when a big event comes to town like that. So ORTA can't do it because of their government ties and restrictions. And, Roost can't do it because they're not in the event business. So that's kind of the role that we filled, and it was especially invigorated for the World University Games. And then last year in April, Utica asked us to help with the International Ice Hockey Women's World Championships over in Utica. And it was the same thing where they had county support, county money, and then there was an arena, but there was no organizing committee. So we came in and filled that role. So that's kind of what it is. And in a time like this, we're not on mothballs, but we don't have a major international event right now. So we're trying to support these smaller events for the benefit of communities who struggle to have continuity with their own volunteer committees and so forth. So Tupper Lake Tin Man, we stepped in and we're helping them this year because it got transferred from the Chamber of Commerce when that closed down, and then it went to the town, but the town doesn't really have capacity. So they were kind of struggling to have some glue to hold their committee together. So we're helping with that.
Okay. So was it on mothballs basically until the Children's Games and the University Games?
Yeah.
And then how many staff does the Adirondack Sports Council have, and where do you get funding from?
Right now we have like 4 staff. We've had as many as 170 during the games. I'm currently the executive director. We have someone in finance, and then we have a couple part-time people who help with finance. And then we ramp up, not help with different events. So it depends on the event. And then we ramp up, we have our Go team that we hire event by event. So it's small. It's basically,
So 4 staffers and then some part-time employees.
yeah, very part-time, like just event services teams.
And your funding source primarily is?
We've had some grants from the state of New York.
I know these are basic questions, but thank you for being here to answer them.
Yeah,
So,
no worries.
yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Anything, Derek?
Oh.
So, so the discussion is that they would like to get permission from the town to host the event starting, what's the date again? June 8th. Instead of having it be centered at Festival Field, they would like to use the ballpark area as a place where they would start. And that would that be the finish line as well?
Yeah.
Start and finish. You'd like to use Festival Field for parking and for facilities, toilets and things.
Will you have porta potties?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill has a question.
Just
One quick question. If the board is going to consider doing this, I would urge them to accommodate her to have the start and the finish off of Springfield Road.
Yeah.
As a competitor and a local, that is the most confusing thing. As a bike race promoter myself, in past years, having that on Springfield Road is the most confusing thing. Getting it here around the community center to finish or anywhere off of Springfield Road would help twofold. It would help the traffic, the local, the positiveness of the race, if you want to call it, just getting it off of there. That is very confusing. There are people crossing, going back and forth from the parking lot across the finish. So if the board is going to, entertain the thought, I would seriously consider moving that start and finish anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our goal.
It is very confusing. I noticed that as a competitor and as a local driving through, it is extremely problematic.
Yeah.
Bill, are you saying not to use the town?
Oh, no,
park, or-
I would use anything. I would use here on the side of the community center or anywhere, but to get it off of Springfield. The timing, the whole confusion and everything off of Springfield.
Off of the festival field.
Springfield Road.
Off of Springfield Road, because the start and finish was right on Springfield
Was
Road.
on the road.
Okay, got it.
So the way it worked last year and the year before was that we had a permit to close the road for 15 minutes for the start in the morning, and just to give the riders time to start en masse here and get down the road, and then they could finish on the side of the road at the end of the day. But it doesn't work. It's not ideal.
When you said that there's been less, you've found there's been less community support. What does that mean? What are the problems people have? I know that the noise was an issue for people. Beyond that,
So by community support, what I mean is I looked around and realized that we were putting this event on as a staff. And in a perfect world, it would be a community committee putting this race on. Not to say that we never necessarily felt unsupported. We just feel like there need to be more voices on a committee to put this race on.
have you asked either Roost or Wilmington's Visitors Bureau to help with that?
Well, I've spoken with Colin, and it's something that we're working towards. And I've had different conversations with people. I have a list of people to call and to get that figured out, and to quite honestly figure out if that group of stakeholders wants this race, right? Or if we want it to evolve to be something else, or at a different time of year, or, in parallel with something else. I will say that not a lot, but certainly some of the riders who come to town love to ride up Whiteface the day before and then do the race on Sunday. So having it the day after that uphill race I think people like that. And then it's also something else to go watch. Like they come and they pick up their packets and then they go watch a bit of that race. So that's not necessarily working, against itself. But that's why I think a group of people making these decisions, especially people who are from the community, would be a wise addition to the race.
So I know, talking about the day of the year that it is, I know that it takes basically away from our Parks Department 3 or 4 days, and that's their busiest time of year. So think that's suboptimal. And I know that you reimbursed the town for the Parks Department wages last year. Is that something you plan on doing again this year?
Certainly. And I know John and I have talked about that, how it's a really busy time and there's no reason we can't, deputize other people and volunteers to sort of do what those guys do. I can tell you what is super useful and helpful has been in the past, we've had access to some signs from the town, there's, I think, some big road closed signs as well as the town trucks. So I don't know to what capacity, John would be able to speak a lot better to that, but.
I think,
to the board.
Yeah,
is that a highway department question?
probably.
Well, the
Well,
trucks are our.
Yeah,
our-
we use the car.
Okay.
The
What
signs
happened?
were bills.
Yeah. I supplied all the road closed signs and what barriers we had and stuff, but that's all. We saw like in the last 2 years, like they didn't involve like the highway department or the parks. That's why it sort of went the other way with the full race. Like, what was it, a week before the race, John? We weren't even notified that they were doing it.
I don't remember exactly, but I think the whole thing in like a quick nutshell is when it first started, there were a lot of hands that came together to make it happen. Like you said, Whiteface did their thing, and the Leadville guys set the course up, and DEC was the lead and the tail of the race, and like we set up some site stuff, and over the years, the race has changed hands 3 or 4 times, and as it changes hands, people kind of like just get, like Beta did a lot for the race, and Beta was kind of out. And so as people get out, the people who are left then have to do more.
Right.
So getting sentiment like pre Josh, like would be better, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
There were a lot more people that did a lot more things. Just as it evolved, it just evolved to have less people involved.
Right, and I think that's exactly what I'm saying, is that to keep it at this level where it's a super small group of people putting it on is not sustainable. We need either community involvement and support, we need Beta back, we need that community back, or it doesn't really make sense.
Like, I'm here to do whatever the board tells me to do, I
Right.
think, but if it's just as it, as more people say I'm out, then it's just who's,
Right.
And Eric is a big piece of the puzzle too.
Is he going to work on it this year?
I don't know.
I haven't talked to him yet because I really wanted to talk to everyone here first.
Got it. Seems like Data would be a natural partner for this. Why aren't they?
I've had conversations with him this year and we're working towards something.
But not for this year, for,
Josh didn't really treat him very well for all their time they were putting in. But Josh isn't involved anymore either.
And
Josh originally, so when Leadville did it like year 1, Josh was on the Leadville team. Josh bought, I don't know if he took it over, bought the race, whatever, from Leadville, and then it was either Lifetime or Euphoria, and then it flipped to one of those or the other. And then I think it went to the sport. There might have been someone in between the sports council and Lifetime.
Josh is not local, he's from somewhere like Florida.
Right, and then he,
okay.
We don't know
everyone
Josh.
would do everything. Like
Yeah.
Data would volunteer all their time, and we would mark the trails, and Whiteface would do, and he would, kind of ride in and smile and shake hands and get paid right off, and then Data was kind of like, I shouldn't really speak on Data's behalf, no one being here, but we're just kind of like, we volunteer a lot of time, and, just to donate, like, a donation for tools or whatever would be cool.
Well, and I think that it's sometimes events just evolve and you need to decide what direction you want that evolution to take.
Yeah, so I mean, along those lines, I've also I've had a meeting with Matt Stanley down at Jay because so much of the course goes through Jay as well. And I just basically put it to him that, it's benefits Jay. You like the race. Lewis likes the race. E-Town likes the race. And Keene, I don't know whether they like the race, but I say they do. And that this is Wilmington doesn't have the gas or the resources to continue to really push as this is the Wilmington event, whereas it affects so many towns. So this is part of the going forward discussion of getting more of a larger circle of support for the race, because those towns also like the race and want to see it continued. So I expect we'll probably be having a meeting with those supervisors of those towns, Carlin and the Sports Council, and invite Roost as well. So, this discussion I think is good about the future of the race this year. It's already sort of baked in a way. So, rather than saying that that's it, it seems to me that we as a town could probably try. I think Colin is talking to the beta guys as much as he can. This is something Colin at the Visitors Bureau cares about, and he has a lot of experience with himself. And so for the town, that's a good resource for us to help be somebody who talks and coordinates and things like that, because I'm not riding the bikes. I'm not going to, I don't have any real ability or interest. Yeah.
I just, I'm not, the race is cool. I like the race. I've worked with Harlan, the hockey championships and the Adirondack Marathon and everything. It's just, like, I'm happy to do it. It's just easier with more people.
That's right. So I talked to Matt about, he's talking to his highway department about getting people to help us this year and stuff. And now, it's end of March. There's still some time to, round up some people for some assistance, because this year the tickets have been sold, the advertising has been made and things like that. But going forward, I'm hoping that Wilmington gets more help from its neighbors in that direction, because they like the race. Apparently, when they go through the North J, the old J Road and stuff like that, they enjoy it from the point of view because it gets looked at, the gate of the road when the bikers are going through it and heading towards Lewis. So going back now, so for this year, I think if we could make a resolution approving our permission for the hosting of the bike race with the relocation of the start and stop to the park. And then we put some, proof of insurance. I think I would like to put a start time in, a quiet time sort of condition on the permit, that they don't start music too early in the morning. Whatever people think early is, but to me, I think that would be appropriate for us to ask that. Anything else? And we've just been spitballing here myself.
Just the reimbursement for the Parks Department.
Reimbursement for the Parks Department and mileage for the trucks, if that's okay. Yeah. And then we'll have John and Louie help with. Hopefully, we would ask you to help with what kind of vehicles they would need and things like that. Good.
Roost has a staff of how many people work for Roost?
I have no idea.
Okay, it's a few dozen, right? It's a $4 million annual budget. One would hope they would have a few event people.
They don't have an events department.
I know. It seems odd that it's on the towns to support these things. If Beta doesn't want to help and the Visitors Bureau doesn't want to help, I'm not sure how much more our town board should invest our taxpayers' money in this event if these other organizations are not that excited about it. However, I think it is probably a good event. I don't know that much about it. So I know it's existed for 10 years, 15 years, something like that. So, I mean, obviously it's positive. It's a strain on our Parks Department, and that's the negative. And maybe it's a bother to some of the people who live near the start and finish time. And the road closure impact, can you talk about that, what that is?
Yeah, so briefly in the morning at the start, just for the safety of the riders, the Springfield is closed down to the intersection of Fox Farm. And then State Patrol and Sheriff just assist with stopping traffic as riders come through, but there are no other like permanent road closures. So it's more or less one driver at a time gets stopped on the other parts of the route. So it's the main road closure is in the morning at the start. I think we would ask for DOT permission to close that road again, just because when there's a mass of riders coming out, we want to make sure that that road is secured. But then that's sort of the end of it. And most of the riding takes place on roads where there are very few cars. So the J Mountain Road, hopefully there's no cars on the backside of it. It's pretty rough. And there's some other critical crossings down towards Keene and whatnot, but the State Patrol are always out to help with that.
And you said 300 people have registered so far, or
170.
Yeah, we have about 170 now. We had 350 last year. We're hoping for, depending on the Canadians, whether or not they're willing to travel down, we're hoping for close to 400.
public have questions?
Anybody? So the resolution will be, we'll give them permission to use the town facilities along the lines that Tim had outlined. We'll also give them permission to use the town roads, that we make up part of the course. And that's it, may I have a resolution?
Make it.
Laura, is there a second?
I'll second.
Aaron seconds. Discussion.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, hold on, wait, we have to vote, yes. Then we'll excuse it. All those in
I
favor?
don't have any other questions or thoughts.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carrie, thank you,
Thank
Carolyn.
you. I'll just sit back here.
Good to see you. All right,
Oh, wait, I did bring some t-shirts, if anyone wants a t-shirt.
I need to get very large, yes, please lay them out there and I'll grab the small one. Thank you, Carol. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have the Wilmington Youth Commission. Hi there.
Hi, sorry I'm a little bit late.
Oh, it's okay.
So we came today, I guess the others couldn't make it in here, to talk about the summer's program. Just to see if we wanted to do it again, to get approval. I wanted to do at least 3 days, if we couldn't do 5. And maybe 3 staff, or 2 with a possible, like fill-in. Like last year, we had one of the girls from the beach.
Yep.
Because there were some call-outs and things like that, and that's gonna happen, and the kids, they can't have one person with
Right,
15 kids, or last year we had 15.
when you say call out, what's that mean?
Like sick, or vacation, or I'm going.
So, yeah, so one of the people working there this summer didn't.
Yeah, so
Sure.
if that happens, like, can we snag somebody from the beach, or do we have somebody, like, we at least have,
Okay.
that's just my thought, is to have at least 3 people, or someone that can volunteer and jump in.
Mhm.
I mean, it'd be great to have 5 days, I don't know what everybody thinks about that. And I also like to increase it if we do get 3 people, to more kids.
So what would you'd like a 3-day a week and 3-person? Is that, or, I mean, let's just start with
So
it.
last year we had 2
Right, 2 days a week,
counselors,
right,
and we did 2 days a week. The
Okay.
year before that, we had 1 counselor, we did 1 this year. I would like to continue to increase it if we can, because every year we get more kids involved. And
okay.
if we can, I don't know how many kids we'll get for interest this year.
Did you have to turn people away last summer?
We did not,
Okay.
we had 15 and we had, I think 14, I think 1. signed up and then wasn't able, maybe only say a couple times.
What's the staff to child ratio that you would require?
I would say 8 at the most.
How many kids were in the ski program?
Or what?
The ski program?
9.
Okay.
And that finished up last weekend.
Excellent. So, I'm gonna share with the board, but, we've drafted, one ad for your program we'll share it with you, and the board. And then, we have the, advertisement for our lifeguards again. We'll have to be sure, and then we'll try to post that. And then the last one, which I haven't shared yet with John, is the, hiring sort of a seasonal parks employee from May 1st to sometime in October. So those have been drafted. I'll share them with interested parties, stakeholders, as they call it. And then we can hopefully get those approved and then posted as soon as we can. I did have a call back from Ashley last year. So Ashley asked if we would consider her returning. One of my lifeguards playing it by ear. So
Was
it's
she interested in the youth again too?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
probably. So so it's nice. That's kind of that's the $1 million question is, how well we do when we send out the request for help like that.
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking if we decide to do that, we could get something out soon.
Yeah.
Before the kids start getting their summer jobs or summer whatever they plan on doing. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the transportation.
Mhm.
We don't have any transportation for the kids to go anywhere. I didn't know, is it possible to maybe chat with Whiteface and to see if we can borrow one of their shuttles or something like that we could use for the kids to go around town, like to go to High Falls Forge or Sanford Shop?
Well, somewhat coincidentally, I met with Ashley Walton last week,
Okay.
and we discussed getting access to the Whiteface buses.
Oh, okay.
And she thought that's probably a good idea. And she was also thinking about offering the kids in the program a trip to Van Hovenberg so they can do the climbing wall
That'd be awesome.
and things
Yeah.
along those things. So I met with her last week, talked to her about this stuff.
And maybe we can do the Fridays are, the days that we go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my mind is terrible, but I'm worried. So who's going to be the driver? What kind of qualifications do we need to make sure? The idea that, me asking Whiteface to send us one of our drivers, that's not optimal. Getting access to those buses that are sitting up there in parking lot, three right now.
I wondered if we would be able to do that.
Yeah.
That would be great.
So yeah, we discussed that she gave it a blessing. There's certain logistics, so we'll have to follow up. But at the same time, I'd certainly like to see staff, get the staff item. The other thing I was thinking about,
Get their staff to drive.
no, our staff, so we have people to, make the summer fun for the kids.
Gotcha.
And so, if we don't get that, then, the rest of it's kind of academic, unfortunately. So that's our main focus. And then the second part is the, Whiteface, loaning us some of those buses. Whether we want to have somebody get the right kind of driver's license for that and things like that, and our insurance, I worry about that. So.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, if we could have one person that's kind of overseeing all of them, and then they're kind of running it instead of, not that I won't help out, but
No.
they kind of.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's becoming more of a town position, to be honest with you.
Right, yeah,
So that's
and I would still want to volunteer and help and plan everything.
Great.
Have any questions, but I just thought it would be easier for someone to be in more control over there than me.
it's moving in the direction of a town position.
So if we post something, is that something you want me to write up again this year?
No, we've drafted 3 sets. I'm going to share them with everybody. because I'd like to get them posted soon.
Yes.
And so you can read it and you can decide whether you like it or you want to make changes of that. Yeah, welcome that as well.
Okay.
Great.
Do you, know if we got a invoice from Whiteface yet? by any chance?
What we did was we've got like a $40 credit. So,
From last year?
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
because they had charged us for,
yeah, so we got like a credit memo from Whiteface. And I'm looking and saying, do we owe anything? I don't know. So, they messed up their billing last year.
Yeah.
And,
because I contacted her after we had paid,
Yeah.
because I didn't see it, but I knew exactly how much we owed and how many kids
Yeah,
had what.
yeah.
So I had went through it and we had overpaid, not a lot, but we overpaid a little bit.
Yeah.
So I talked to Nicole about just seeing it real quick to make sure that
Yeah.
they didn't add other kids from other towns, because that's what had happened.
that's what happened last year.
And, I mean, I know right off the top of my head who had what, who
Okay.
got what.
Okay.
So, but you guys have those checks from the people that donated. I turned those into Nicole
Fine.
weeks ago. So that should be
Okay.
fine, but just so that we're not,
Right.
covering other people, other towns' kids.
That's, I'm good with that. Thank you. Anybody from the board? Well, if you're finished,
Yeah, I
I think,
think that's all I had.
okay.
Do you think you want to try for 5 days a week?
I would love to. I mean, if that's something that we can do. I'm okay with slowly building it and see how much interest we get as well, but.
What did we budget for?
Well, we're still at 10,000.
I think
What did-
5 days a week is gonna be pushing it based on that. Plus, obviously I'm all for the kids and supporting programs to a certain extent, but if we have 15 and let's just say we have 20 kids this year, I mean, that kind of goes to the same token as what you were just saying about the bike race. It's like hard taking taxpayers' dollars and dedicating $30,000 towards 20 kids that the rest of the community doesn't benefit from. So I'm all for a program, but I think we need to be realistic on our budget and making sure that we can afford it without costing the taxpayers absorbent amount for a.
Well, I would be
3 day.
willing to see about some grants. I don't know where to start with that because I've never done anything like that. If anybody has any ideas, I would definitely try to get some grants for the youth,
Mhm.
because I'm sure there are some out there.
Well,
And maybe even for next year.
Sure.
It's probably too late. But that's just the thought too. I'm sure there's a lot of grants out there for youth committees.
yeah. Well, Chris and I have started working on grants from in-house kind of questions. So we're cutting our teeth with a few.
And I'm fine with, 5 days is too much. Let's just see what our interest is.
No, I think you're right. I think if we can, what we can propose in terms of the number of counselors, how much we would pay them per hour, and start from there. And then, that's the size of the program. It would be, that kind of deal. If you have, I would feel awkward offering a position to somebody who's in college, and then we didn't get the kids to justify and say, sorry, we're sending you home because we just don't have all the kids today, especially the third person question.
Would it be okay for me to post something to see what we have for interest? Because I have had people email me about it already.
Yep.
So can I post something saying, this is what we're thinking? Should I say 3 days a week then?
Yeah.
And see if they, what's that?
You mean in the way of kids?
Yeah, just to see who would, for them to say, yes, we're interested, they would need to know how many days we would have available.
Right.
So, and I'm fine with saying please, okay.
Yeah, I just, we can't, we can't fund it exactly. And I certainly don't want to promise somebody a position and then we have 4 kids one day and we're like, okay, you go home, and they're like, oh, I could have worked at somewhere else.
Right.
Um,
Okay, so I'll post something saying,
Right.
or send some emails
Okay.
on interest for 3 days a week. We'll do the same weeks, it's 6 weeks, I think, after July 4th. And, like the week or so before.
Could you email me the calendar? And if you Do you have Carissa's email?
I don't,
It's carissagray@townofwilmington.org. She's assisting with the beach calendaring, management of lifeguards, when they show up, I won't bother her with them, the way they text at 10 o'clock at night to say, I'm not gonna make it, favorite.
I had one
I'll-
text me at midnight.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take the texts, but in any case, so she's organizing our beach schedule and things like that too.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you, Amy.
Do
Do
you
you think,
mind if I ask you?
yeah, can I ask you one question though?
Yeah.
Do you think more people would participate if it was 5 days a week because it's a more consistent schedule? Is that one of the benefits of 5 days a week? Or just, what is the benefit is just building the program and having it every day?
I think it is both. I mean, I'm okay with building it and showing that we're using it and slowly building it. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're like, okay, I don't have to worry about these other 2 days where my kids are going. You know, it's not necessarily daycare, but if you need to take your kid to a camp, you have to be able to know whether you can get them there or not, or somebody can get them if you're working full time. So, yeah. But if we say these are the 3 days, it's gonna be Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays, then they can figure it out ahead of time.
I'm all for 5 days. If
So I'll email you the proposed one, Ed. Thanks.
No, sounds sensible. Thank you.
how can we does the town board, Amy, need to support you as far as getting more people involved in the youth committee? Because I know that that's
That
an
would be
issue.
great. Yeah, because we did lose 2 people. I mean, if anybody wants to volunteer, come to our meetings first Thursday of the month at 5:30. We are looking to add some people.
So I guess any kind of
You
town
don't have to-
communication,
What's that?
any kind of town communication that is going out, we should mention that.
Even if somebody just thinks they want to come to a meeting just to check it out, they don't have to.
Not a life sentence,
Not always.
no.
Yes,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thank you. I wish I were asleep in the middle of that.
It's too much hockey, I think.
Spring cleanup, I threw this in because I got a request from the Freshwater Center about permission to use this transfer station for its annual Earth Day cleanup. Last year, we managed to organize some sort of a spring cleanup. Some people had asked me about it. Is that something, and Carlin, if I could call you, Carlin helped by getting some of those orange bags to us last year, which were nice. But I just want to, it seems to me that this was, at first, we could announce that we'd like to do a spring cleanup of some kind the same way and see who among the local volunteers would like to participate. If we could pick a calendar date, is that Earth Day is what, April 23rd or something like that. I don't know. So I just want to get from the board whether we want to send out notices that anyone interested in spring cleanup, we would be happy to support it.
Is it possible to put it on the same day as the freshwater one?
I don't know how those work, but I'll find out. But it's something the board's interested in, trying to get that going again, because I haven't heard from anybody yet.
Right, that was a grassroots
Yeah.
community request, not a board request. So
Exactly.
yeah.
So anyway, we can follow. Next is action items. We have
I
Iron
agree
Man.
with Laura. It would be good if they were the same day. I think that would make sense.
Okay. Iron Man permission for use of the town roads in 2025. They use Bill Huber.
I'll make it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Laura, discussion?
Is this just gonna go on for eternity?
So
I mean, I just don't understand.
We can't answer that right now. They have, what, 2 more years left on their contract, and then it's to be renegotiated.
Hopefully, yeah, I would say hopefully it does for eternity. I think it would be.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion, second. Any further discussion?
I have the same thought I've always had, which is I don't have a strong opinion. I think that the majority of the townspeople are tired of it. It's been a long time. I really think it ought to be put to some kind of vote. And that's my opinion. I personally don't have a strong opinion, but my sense is the majority of people are tired of it at this point.
Go ahead, please.
So we've had this discussion before, and basically it's not up to Wilmington. And we can turn around and we can say, all right, if you don't have permission to use Bill Huber Road, it's still coming through Wilmington. So except if we don't use Bill Huber Road, it's coming down through 86 and all of Hazelton Road and closing off even more town roads or more inconvenience for the town taxpayers. So for us to sit there and say, we can vote against it, our vote doesn't matter because it's still coming through Wilmington regardless. So it's a benefit to the town taxpayers to allow them to use Bill Huber Road. So it's not blocking off 86 and not blocking off Hazelton both ways.
I take your point. I just think if the town doesn't want it, it really is pretty telling if the town were to vote against it and they would continue sending it through the town.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'm silent, I don't know, sorry.
That's all right. Osable Freshwater Center is asking for permission to use our transfer station when it's doing our annual Earth Day spring cleaning. They get a little, we create a little bit of a flyer that they can put in their car, and then they go out to the transfer station and Doug helps them unload it, which they've done for a number of years. Plus, the Osable Freshwater Center has sort of told us that we may have been successful in a grant to replace the culvert on John Bliss Road, which is running around $300,000. So I'd like to give them permission to use our transfer station. I have a motion to accept that, please.
Make it.
Laura makes it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Darren seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, so public comment. Hi there. Nope. We're going to go into an executive session after this, so.
Can we ask anything about KOA
Sure.
on the farm?
Good.
What's happening? What's going on there?
Well, from what I understand, that they have, are reopening the old, whatever the layout used to be for their things. They need to bring it up to code, so they have to put in a new septic system. They needed to run power, so they were taking trees off of the property that was grown so that they can reopen it the way, they shouldn't have destroyed it, basically, a couple of years ago.
So the tree removal is just,
To get at the septic system, the sites that they.
yeah, but it's expanded from the one side toward the river and then it's going all the way over the other one too, toward that road. Where's that road?
Well, there may be there are two different owners, so the property that is near the river, Route 86, is not the KOA. And I'm not sure, I don't have the answer to that one. I mean, I haven't talked about that. I don't know with Doug or with but I know the planning board has had, I think, some email back and forth about what's going on at the Fox Farm Road KOA.
We don't have anything in our zoning code about tree cutting or clear cutting. There was something in our previous code, but that related to that gave the planning board some grounds to have any say, but our planning board, as far as I know, doesn't have any say about clear cutting at this point. And the site, their plan now is to have, and Lord, and I have looked at this, and so please correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be the same, almost exactly the same number of sites, but it's going to be more RVs than it was? Or is that wrong?
I think it's almost exactly the same, but there's
Okay.
no lodge or pool or, yeah. It's just sites.
Favor, I've got just one or two questions I've been meaning to ask you. You gave us this with the 10 largest property taxpayers in Wilmington, and I know there must be some reason you gave this to us. What are you getting at with this?
Just for your information.
Okay.
The county will produce, if someone requests a list of the 10 largest taxpayers, the real property offices in Essex County will produce it, but they won't produce one if it's not requested. So I just figured, well, let's just request one.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Would they do top 30 or top 50?
Top,
Just only top 10?
top 10.
Oh, top 25.
American Idol.
And John, would it be helpful if some of the towns like Jay or Lewis, Keene, if some of them sent members of their parks department to help with the bike race?
Yes and no. Just, I mean, we could do it, in-house with more people. We could, if there were clear, it would take some time for that to happen, but the short answer would be yes. But there would have to be a place where other towns took over and they would still have to be trained on, or they could just get a map and figure it out, I guess. But
John, just so everybody knows, can you give us a brief description of what Wilmington does for the race, so everybody knows?
the cleaning the bathrooms, the trash cans, picnic tables, tents, setting up the race, so doing the arrows to tell the racers where to go.
And we do it for the whole race, even over to Lewis?
Over to E-Town and back. The morning of the race, we have two crews. One crew goes out at 4-ish, 4:30, and they drop. We have 150 to 200 cones, drop cones at every corner of the race where police and rescue and everyone are going to be. Cone off the yellow line from the bridge after Bartlett and Lacey to Stiles Brook. I come and set up to the 50K turnaround, stand there until the last 50K rider goes through, typically because it's a sharp corner and people either miss it or there's, we worry about someone coming in, they're coming fast there. So, if there is confusion and problems, someone's there. And then in the past couple of years, we've kind of hung out in E-Town until the last 100K racer would go through. And then we would just kind of slowly follow them back and sweep the race. As we're doing that, we clean up all the arrows we put out, all the food packs on the ground, water bottles, tires.
And this mostly happens on the weekend?
Setting up happens throughout the week. Race day is what I just described, which is on the weekend. And then the day after, we would just take a real quick sweep just to make sure there wasn't any trash or anything. Because people have complained in the past that trash was left out and then we go and pick up, cigarette packs and beer cans. It's not from the race, it's on the race course, so people will be like, well, you trashed my road, and it wasn't.
And it's only been our 2 or 3 parks department people that's done all this? We haven't had help from anybody else?
Last year, our crew pitched in, because you weren't here, right?
The year before, I don't think last year was the first year I wasn't here. I was at the hockey tournament in Rhode Island. So Ashton did what I did previously. but you hired Don Hoove and Eric
Yes, you
on the
hired
side.
two highway crew guys. You guys paid them everything. Only thing they used was the town
Did
truck.
Ski do it last year?
Yes.
Yeah, someone,
You guys paid them on their own.
And then Fred and Devin marked the course.
no, because I did.
Oh, the night before you left.
They just checked,
Yeah.
you mean? Yeah, they didn't mark it. I marked it before I left.
And then the tent, don't we use a town tent? Is that what you guys
Two.
set up in the park?
Yeah. 2 towns. So which would,
No, it's the details, that's fine.
like before DEC would sweep the race, so we wouldn't have to, be responsible.
Yeah, and the DEC
For that.
has lost personnel and funding, and that's the only reason they don't. They'd be happy to if they had the people, they just have lost people.
And then there were the motorbike guys that were gonna sweep it last year, but they just all led instead of swept it. And that people used to mark, like, the people used to mark Blueberry and Hardy Road. I think you guys are doing
Yeah.
Hardy Road now. It's just there's a lot of people that aren't there anymore.
Can I add just one thing?
Go ahead, please.
Bike races, at least all the bike races that I participate in, the prices have gone up astronomically. Has the sports council ever considered possibly doing like a $10 surcharge on the registration? I know whether people are paying, I'm paying 123 to do the 50. I mean, I was fortunate enough to get comped in because you used my signs, et cetera, but if somebody's paying 123 or 133, I don't think they really care. And maybe that extra $10 could be put into a fund, as the board is very conscious about what it's costing. Maybe that would help offset some of the costs to make them welcome to do it. Somebody's paying 123, they're gonna pay 133.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I am in my mind, that the prices go up every year. That may be something to consider.
Something to consider, yeah. And in the past, there's also, every year we take a donation for data,
Right.
back to the trails too. So,
And I've been, like, over the years, I've been kind of trying to get sort of, like, the sports council still. And Mikey went with me one year, but I don't even know if Mikey's in the picture anymore. So,
no, but we do have no team.
I'm happy to do whatever, but like ideally, if it's the sports council's race, like maybe they could do the coursework and the town could be responsible for tents and garbage and picnic tables and everything that you need here.
Yeah, but I think, if we're saying it's not the sports council's race, they're a facilitator.
Well, yeah, that's.
We're getting into a discussion of that, and that's kind of why I'd like to take more of a, suggest a regional approach eventually. And things along those lines, unless Wilmington wants to continue to hold it and then ask other towns for help. But, what I've observed about Wilmington is that, again, it's resources and personnel question.
Ultimately, I'm gonna do whatever you tell me to do.
I'm not making that point now. I'm just saying that the whole thing is the discussion about whose race it is. Okay? It seems to me it's Wilmington's race right now, or it's in limbo.
Or it's an opportunity to redefine it.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm hoping. We have this year's question, how to get it running and going, and because people have relied on that and trying to get into the race and things like that. And then going forward, I'm all keen on sharing if they want to start it in Upper J one year and have the race finish somewhere else. That'd be something else. We can have that discussion. But and then it becomes more of a regional race. And Garland pointed it out. There was a committee of people who were sort of overseeing it, and they were interested in it. And we don't have that. I don't want to try to talk the Visitors Bureau into giving Colin something more to do. But one of the reasons why I think Colin seemed like perfectly suited to be a town representative voice on this stuff is this is something he likes and knows something about as well. So, but it's not for us to decide. No.
And like if there was like a designated sweep team, it would make the people's day who's breaking down the race a little shorter.
Yeah.
Because at whatever, whenever the cutoff is, then they just go and it's over, you know, but then you get into that moral, like this guy's on the backside of J Mountain with no water. And like, there's no cell phone service for 10 miles either direction. Like, do I just leave him here? You know what I mean? If he goes over to Sandbars and passes out, and there's just little tweaks that would make it easier for everyone, but those people have to exist to make it.
For sure. I hear you.
But I mean, I'm not against it in any way. I'm just, it's just a lot. As it has evolved, it's just gotten to be, and it's a hard time of year. The weekend after Memorial Day is like, you know, you have a rush to do everything for Memorial Day, and everything that you don't do just gets put on hold for a week. There's too much to do morning of, so you got to set the course Thursday-ish before, and then with the two teams in the morning, then they can go through and make sure arrows are all pointing in the right directions. Because we've had people put plywood over culverts and wash out roads because they don't want to. We've had people move arrows, turn arrows, like, you know, so like a marathon or something, if you have 10 staff out putting cones there, you can do that at 5 o'clock in the morning before the race starts. There's just way too much to do day of. So then you have to set it up, you know, beforehand, and then go through and make sure everything's okay in the morning.
And John, I can work with you and hopefully Eric, and we can try to streamline all of that a bit. I think we did get some streamlining done last year, as I understand it was lost smoother, so we can work on that offline.
Yeah.
Any other public comment?
You know, I feel like I want to say one more thing about, I've spent several months doing a sport tourism study for both Franklin and Essex counties.
Right.
And it's been fascinating to me because one thing that really floated to the top was Essex County was very interested in understanding how sport tourism affected quality of life for the residents. And what came out of it was that when people come in from out of town and they bring their money in to spend, and oftentimes what happens, and this, we've seen the evolution of this over the years, even from the beginning of Ironman, is that it draws new residents to a region. And we're living in a region right now that is losing students. Like the school populations are declining dramatically. And so Essex County is very concerned about how do we keep our residents, how do we keep our population so that you keep your schools and your tax base and jobs. And so I think that we think of sport tourism as people coming from the outside to play here and leave, but it's so much bigger than that. It's really creating an environment that adds quality of life for residents, draws new residents to town, creates residual spending. And that residual spending really has, you know, flows down river quite a ways. So I think it's important to keep a broad look at that and not think of these things as isolated recreational events that happen in a vacuum. You know, they really have region-wide impact that if you visit towns that don't have a sport tourism component to it, it has a very different look and feel. So
Can I touch on that?
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but the reason we have low population in schools is because we can't put people in houses. We have houses that are taken up for short-term rentals. I mean, this is what we've been talking about for years on end. The more that we pull people in here, yes, it's a very beautiful place to visit. Most people want to come here, and then they'll come and buy a house, and then they'll turn it into a short-term rental, and then it's taking a house away from somebody who has a family or wants to raise a family and wants to put kids in the school district. I mean, that is the other flip side of that coin that you're talking about. So just wanted to touch base on that.
There's a lot of pieces to that discussion for sure. Yeah. And I wish it were that simple. It's so complicated. It's complex and it's happening all across the country. So.
Thank you very much, everyone. I have a motion to go into executive session, please.
I'll make it primary factor.
I just want to say, I'm not against doing that. You know what? It's hard to, I'm not trying to come off as like anti.
John, are you against this
I'm happy to
race?
do it, and
Seems like you are totally against this.
All right, motion for again, have a second, please, to go into executive session. Second, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you all.